Hi everyone, so today I'm going to take you on a little trip to London to take a look at our most famous, infamous courthouse, the Old Bailey. Now the Old Bailey has been around for ever, centuries. It was originally built on the old Newgate prison, and that was in the 1700s, and the old Newgate prison was a place you really didn't want to go. They would send people there, you know, if they stole like a loaf of bread or something like that, but it was mainly famous. It was really like deplorable conditions, and it was mainly a place that they held a lot of executions there. And what they would do is between Newgate and the Old Bailey were kind of intertwined at one point, you know, side by side, but there was a little alleyway that kind of ran between them, and that alleyway was called Dead Man's Walk. It's still there to this day. And what they would do, they would bring the condemned people that were going to be executed through this alleyway, and they called it Dead Man's Walk. And they say to this day that their bodies, some of the bodies are entombed in that wall, even to this day. Not a place you would necessarily want to visit at night. In any event, people would come from all over the country to watch the executions. You know, they throw rotten food at them. To them, it was like a day out. A little bit like in France, where, you know, people would be sent to the guillotine, and you'd have the old women sitting there knitting like it was a day out. So it was very similar to that. And when they finally tore Newgate Prison down, the Old Bailey was built on top of that. It's mainly remained the same ever since. They've done very little to it. I mean, there was an annex added on in the 70s, I believe, and there was a bombing when the Troubles were going on, and somebody put a car bomb outside of the Old Bailey, and one person died there. And a shot of glass that came from that bombing they have at the top of the stairs there. It's very beautiful inside. It has a dome, and it has inscriptions kind of all the way around. It's absolutely beautiful inside. I'm going to show you courtroom number 1 in a minute. Well, I'm going to show you the outside of the building first, and then hopefully YouTube will be working so you can see courtroom number 1, which is the famous courtroom. This courtroom is kept for really serious crime. I mean, I've been to the Old Bailey several times, not as a defendant, but you know, I've had people I know tried at the Old Bailey, but not courtroom number 1. I think they've added on about 15 courtrooms since the old days, but courtroom number 1 was where, for example, the Old Bailey, the jurisdiction is England and Wales, and an example of that, Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, you know, he was running. Yorkshire's in the north of England, and he was running around there, you know, killing women, and they called him the Yorkshire Ripper. When they finally caught him, they transported him to London, to courtroom number 1, where he was tried and given a life sentence. And I believe he died in prison very recently. Ruth Ellis, she was the last woman to be hung in Britain. That happened in 1955. We abolished the death penalty not long after that. And she had shot her lover in the street in London, and she was tried at the Old Bailey and sentenced to death. The Cray twins obviously were tried courtroom number 1. Any serious crime is put in courtroom number 1. But I'm going to show you the outside if possible. Hopefully my YouTube will work, so you can see the outside of the building, and then I'll show you courtroom number 1, the inside. Okay. Alright. Let's see if this works. Okay, so the Old Bailey it was called the Old Bailey because it's on Bailey Street. Now, this EC4, that's like a postcode. It's East Central London 4, Zone 4, whatever, and it's like you have your zip codes here. And it's part of the City of London. But this is the outside of the building. Hopefully it'll play. Okay, yeah, it really hasn't changed in years. I believe it was built in 1902. This is Lady Justice on the top there. As you see, she has the sword and the scales of justice. It's supposed to be blind justice, but she's not blindfolded, and they said it's because of her maidenly form that they assumed that she would be impartial. She didn't need to be blindfolded. That's the entrance. It's very ornate, very beautiful. It's been the same for years. And that's the street that it's on. And the building goes all the way back, actually. That's just the actual front of it. Now, over the door, I mean, they have inscriptions. There's a dome inside, but over the door, which they're going to show you in just a second. Oh, there it is. It says, defend the children of the poor and punish the wronger. And you notice how... I don't know if you noticed how punish was spelt, but had a V in it. But that's the outside. So let's end that. Hold on. Rid of that, and I got rid of me. Hold on 1 second, I'm just gonna go trouble. Now then, let's get rid of that. Yeah, so yeah, that's the outside of the building. Now I'm going to see if I can show you the inside. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All right. Now this is a little clip from Sky News over there. Excuse me. What's happening is, hold on 1 sec. So, for example, your courts here have had cameras for years. The Old Bailey, absolutely not. For example, the OJ trial, if that would have happened in England, he would have been tried in courtroom number 1, and they never allowed cameras. In fact, I believe a few months ago they passed a thing saying that They're going to allow cameras in for part of some trials, not all, but they basically have kept it the way it was. But I'm going to show you the inside of courtroom number 1. Hold on a second. It's remained the same for years and years and years. Let's see. Come up. Yeah, I don't know if it wants to share. Oh yeah, it does. It's going to share. Okay, so hang on a minute. All right.
The scene of many infamous trials, like Ruth Ellis, the last woman to be hanged, the gangster Cray twins, former Liberal leader Jeremy Thorpe, and Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper. Now, within months, this courtroom will make history again, as television cameras will, for the first time, be able to cover part of the trial process.
Over the years, I've sat right here in these press benches, covering many major trials in this court, scribbling down often dramatic testimony. But the lack of cameras in this courtroom means you're reliant on me and other correspondents trying to relay a sense of that drama to you afterwards from outside court.
Now, broadcasters will be able to request cameras are allowed here at the Old Bailey and at other major trials to film the conclusion of those cases as judges sentence offenders.
What I hope will happen is that in high-profile cases, broadcasters such as Sky will use extracts from the sentencing remarks to illustrate the news stories that they're broadcasting so that people will understand better why the result was as it is.
The court can certainly declare that the advice was unlawful.
Cameras were allowed into the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal several years ago. Their introduction has been judged a success and helped strengthen the campaign by the main news broadcasters to include major criminal trials.
All the broadcasters have been campaigning for cameras in Crown Courts for at least 10 years. This is a big leap forward. I hope it's successful because it will open up the courts to greater transparency, and I hope because of that people will think we should extend this to other courts as well.
It was snatched photographs of the infamous Dr. Crippen during his Old Bailey trial for murder in 1910 that led to the ban on cameras in court. More than a century later, some of the inner workings of the trial process will now be seen again.
The cameras will be focused right here on the trial judge. No lawyers, defendants or witnesses. Initially, providing there's a successful conviction, what we'll get is the judge's sentencing remarks.
Okay, so yeah, you see how far behind England is. They're just going to start introducing cameras now, and I think it's a great thing because there have been so many miscarriages of justice in that particular courtroom. I want to say one of them I'm going to do a whole show on. It was absolutely deplorable, and I think if they'd have had cameras, it would never have happened, or it may have happened, but there would have been an outcry. It was absolutely a disgrace. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So I was going to explain a little bit, you know, how it works. Let's say I'm arrested for a serious crime, and I have to go to the Old Bailey. Now, when you're arrested in England, it's not the same as here. You have a sheriff and you have a police department. I still don't quite get that, but anyway, we just have a police department, and you're taken to the police station. You would be formally charged, and they have like little holding cells in the back, but they get you into court as soon as possible, usually the next day. And if it's a serious crime, you're not getting bail, you're going to be kept in. So it's called being kept on remand. And what they do, they send you basically to prison. So if it's a real serious case, you'll be, by the time you go to trial to the Crown Court, you're looking at 1 year to 2 years. So you know you're going to be doing that time off the bat, even if you're found innocent. In any event, and I don't like that idea either, but essentially that's what happens. Now, our defense is it's a little complicated, but I'll try and explain it. For example, if I stole something, then I would go to the Magistrates Court. Now that's a lower court. Generally, magistrates are the run-of-the-mill public. It could be a publican, it could be a librarian, and generally they would deal with that type of thing. So let's say it's a serious crime. Everything starts at the Magistrates Court, and if the crime is serious, then you're referred to the Crown Court. And so what you have to do is you would need to get a solicitor. Here you would call it a lawyer. You start with the solicitor, then it goes to a barrister who's a little bit higher up than a solicitor, and they kind of prepare the case. And then once you go to trial, then you would be represented by Queen's Counsel. Now, they're the ones with the wigs and whatever. So, and it can be very, very costly. My ex had a great Queen's Counsel. I mean, he got him off a few times. They're very, very clever. And, in order to be a Queen's Counsel, you have to have at least 10 years as a barrister under your belt, and you apply to become Queen's Counsel. And if you get it, it is a very prestigious job. And they're the ones with the wigs. So I was going to show you a little bit of that too. So let's see here. This is Lord Chief Justice Wilmot. Now this painting was done in 1709, and if you notice the robes, the wig, etc. And this is Lord Chief Ian Barnett, who was just on that news clip. He was the one talking, and as you notice, the wig, the robes are the same. Now this is Queen's. This is also a Queen's Counsel. They're the ones that generally do for the prosecution and whatever. They wear black, and the judge would wear red. And so, hold on, get rid of that. And so that's how it works. It's you do have to go through a lot of hoops. It's no walk in the park, I guarantee you that. But the Old Bailey is an institution. Most people, serious crimes end up there. We do have Crown Courts as well within our areas. Like I lived in Essex. there are several around, you know, where people would go. You know, it's only really, really serious. If it's really, really serious, then you would end up at the Old Bailey. And so that's it for me this evening. Just thought I'd explain that to you a little bit. Well, I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm gonna do a show about a trial at the Old Bailey that was went totally left. It was outrageous what happened there, and you know, I think cameras they should have been introduced years ago. You know, England are always way behind everything, literally, and you know, it's interesting though, yeah, to say the least. And what's kind of funny about the Old Bailey too, it's like, you know, in the old movies, you come up from the floor, you know, you go down and you're standing in the dock, and everybody, it could be harrowing. I couldn't imagine, you know. But anyway, I hope you all have a good evening, and see you very soon. Bye bye.